Hello, beautiful people. I hope that you're doing well. I'm so glad you've joined me. Today, we are going to be talking about hormones related to adverse childhood experiences and also PTSD, and more specifically around lineage imprints, right? So, this intergenerational and transgenerational trauma that we see related to hormones. So, stay tuned because at the very end, I'm going to talk about 3 specific things that can really help. And I think that this will be something that really you guys can take away and also take back to some of your other providers to give you some more traction. So let's talk about hormones, right? Everybody is and they're looking for solutions. And some of my women, they come to see me because they are not responding. So it could be women who are trying to get pregnant and they're having miscarriages or they're having a really hard time getting pregnant. And one of the things that for some folks, it's not going to come up in a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation with their OBGYN. They're going to leave that more for the counselors, right? But we know it's all related. And so we have to look at this. And so what we have found for some women who are trying to get pregnant, if there has been ACE in the background or PTSD in the background, or even those intergenerational threads, is that they might have, again, a harder time getting pregnant because those what we call ovarian reserves, or like basically the eggs, basically they don't have enough of them kind of hanging around or hanging out. And then also we see with that stress, if the body is still in that, they'll have a hard time sometimes keeping the pregnancy. And it's because dopamine and also progesterone kind of work hand in hand. And if the body thinks it's in fight and flight still, it's very challenging to kind of keep that pregnancy. And so I want my women that are out there, if this is something that you've experienced before, what we oftentimes do is we will work very closely with their other providers, but really work around trying to help the body come out of fight and flight. And again, this can be an imprint from long ago from parents and grandparents. We see this in the literature and the research. And so really helping that autonomic nervous system calm down and kind of reset is really important. So I wanted to share that. And one of the other things is that we can also see for some women, if they've had a lot of trauma in the background, and again, those threads, is that they might have early hysterectomy. They're having fibroids, they're having more pain, they're having a hard time with their period. And in some cases, they're even skipping periods, and we can also see it linked to also PCOS. So a lot of our women who are not responding to therapy, we have to look at this of like, again, it's not just to basically say everybody's having this, but when you have someone who is not responding, maybe including yourself, we have to look at these deeper things. And it's not just about taking a pill or putting someone on hormones or even birth control, right? Like we have to kind of dig a little bit deeper. And so that's where that family history, taking a really good history, can be really helpful. And also looking at their labor and delivery story if we happen to know it. So one of the other things that we can see is that for those folks that have also had trauma in their background, and let's say, for instance, they do have a pregnancy that comes to fruition, right? Sometimes what we found is that their children are having harder times also with their hormones. So again, it's that intergenerational thread. So moving a little bit away from fertility and reproduction is really what a lot of folks that are really wanting to know is, how am I handling perimenopause or menopause? I am struggling, whereas other women may not be struggling, right? So let's talk a little bit about this, is that some women, again, if they had the way that I kind of look at things is, what was their menstrual cycle like? What has their lifestyle been? Like, how are they eating? What is their stress level? All of those things matter. And are they getting exercise and that's really appropriate for them? And again, those are kind of the bare bones that we want to look at. But a lot of times, if I had a woman who was really struggling through basic, like their menstrual cycles and that kind of thing, that can really dictate how they go through menopause and perimenopause. And for most of our women, they haven't been getting enough exercise for, unfortunately, decades. And so now it catches up with them because things are kind of slowing down. And again, if they've had issues already in the lineage or within themselves around hormone regulation, this is where the wheels kind of come off the bus. And so what we know about stress related to our hormones is even 3 to 5 days can change our basic hormones, like LH, which is luteinizing hormone, or FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone, and can even affect our thyroid. So that's just a basic stress of 3 to 5 days. That's pretty significant. That's right, that's really significant. Whereas if you look at someone who's been under that chronic stress, right, for a long period of time, again, it affects their thyroid health. It can affect, again, we talked about fertility. It can also affect the way in which their bone density is being set up. Again, we can have families who have that in the background of osteoporosis, but if the body thinks you're running and fighting and flying, guess what? It's not going to put it towards bone health. It's basically trying to help you with survival. So it's just something to kind of think about. So again, what we want to try to do around perimenopause and menopause is really help to get those neurotransmitters, or what we call our brain chemicals, more regulated. And again, one of the things that we want to think about is what's dopamine doing, norepinephrine and epinephrine, those fight and flight chemicals, and how that's affecting your hormones, because they are interrelated. So there's something called the neuroendocrine system, and that's where your neurological system and your endocrine system, which is your hormonal system, are all interrelated through the HPA axis. And so if you've missed this earlier, that's okay. It's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. Think of this like the conductor in your body, and it basically knows exactly what's going on. So if you're in a fight and flight situation, or you're under chronic stress, this can really be impacted. So I just wanted to kind of share, like, for our women who are struggling around perimenopause or menopause, this is where we're going to be very, very specific about looking at three things. One, we want to look at what you're eating. And again, this is low-hanging fruit. Sometimes it's based upon, we want to look at sugar content, and sugar is not just sugar, it's also alcohol and certain types of carbs, and everybody's different and their body structure. And what one woman may need is something different than what another woman needs. And this is where I think a lot of the things on social media are getting things wrong, is they're saying one thing or another thing, and it's very confusing for the population. What we have to do is get very specific, and there's something called nutrigenomics, which is your genes with your food, and we can be very specific for you, whereas some people need certain types of protein from certain types of sources, and other women need it from other sources. So it's, again, we need to get really, really more targeted and specific for you. The second thing is we have to not just find the diet and the food and nutrients that you need to nourish yourself, but also then the exercise that's right for you. And also nutrigenomics is included in that, because again, it's how our bodies move and how it deals with our like the nutrients that are coming in. So one woman may do really well with weights, and another woman may do horrible with that, right? And depending on what's gone on for her and what's in the family line, we have to also take that into account. And also the traumas that she has had. So again, if you've been in a fight and flight, there's a lot of traumas. You running is not the best option. The body still thinks you're running. So basically what that means, it's gonna hold on to every single pound that it can, because it thinks that it's in danger. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is emotional nourishment. And so this is where there's so many people that can be really helpful. So anything from, seeing your regular provider, seeing a naturopathic doctor, seeing a counselor, and really emotional nourishment. A lot of times people have been in a program for a really long time of this fight and flight. Their body is so activated as soon as they open their eyes in the morning, or as soon as something happens in their daytime, they're immediately in that reaction, right? And so we have to really work with this body to almost kind of reprogram it. I hope that makes sense. And one of the best ways is trying to help with the brain waves. So brain waves, everybody has brain waves, and when we are busy and stressed and doing all kinds of stuff, we're in more of what we call beta brain waves. When we're in more of a receiving kind of situation, it's what we call alpha brainwaves, and that's where we heal. If we're in beta all the time, our body cannot heal. And so one of the most important things we have to do is find the specific support for that woman to help her shift out of those beta brainwaves and spend more time in the alpha brainwaves. So there's lots of ways for us to do that. Meditation, music, dance, also, people like to write or read, and so those are the things that can really help. And what I found to be most useful for my people is actually meditation. And so I know everyone, a lot of people, they've tried meditation and maybe it didn't work for them, but there's different types. And so again, if we can just really soften those brain waves, that can really help us heal, and to also help those hormones get back into alignment to work with the HPA axis. So I just wanted to share a little bit. I'll be spending some more time also talking about about more perimenopause and menopause, of what we can, some of the things that you might see. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think it's getting a lot of publicity, and sometimes it's like, oh, do this hormone or do that hormone. But guess what? If you've been in fight and flight and you take another hormone, that doesn't mean it's going to make it better. In fact, it could actually make it worse. So I don't want people feeling worse. And unfortunately, sometimes that's why they show up in our office, is because of the fact that they were put on hormone therapy and failed. And that's because the body is still in that activated fight and flight from either a lineage pattern or even a more recent pattern that was either some type of trauma or even adverse childhood experiences. So it's been wonderful being with you. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.